The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those knuckleheads of liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're coming at you on January 23rd, 2023. So this is the beginning of school choice week. So we wanted to have another show that's focused on topics of education this week and some of the problems we see going on in them. So let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And in our upper right-hand corner, we have a special guest today with us. He is Larry Sand, and he is president of the California Teachers Empowerment Network, and he is also a former teacher in the state of California as well, too. So let's dive into the topics. I tell you, we hear about all kinds of questionable things going on in our schools today, which, after COVID lockdowns, a lot of people started to exercise a little more skepticism. We see a little more school choice happening, but let's kind of dive into some of those issues that people are discovering, I guess, about what's going on. How the teachers and the public schools seem to be, miseducating our kids. And, it takes us right into California where, Gavin Newsom and the Democrats seem to be almost pushing a view that you might call racism or reverse racism, which is just another way of saying racism, I guess, but in teaching a lot of this critical race theory stuff. And James, maybe I could get a visual here. So here was an article that got published recently in looks like the beginning of last year, but it talked about a teacher, Callie Fontanilla, I guess, who wound up as a teacher realizing that that the stuff she was being pushed to teach her kids was all this essentially related to this critical race theory, which has to do with, telling the kids that, hey, look, the society is treating you different based upon the color of your skin. And we're going to talk about how you're all privileged in different ways based upon the color of your skin. And essentially it's just telling everybody to see each other in terms of colors and not as individuals, which is just, I thought we were trying to get away from that, but this seems to be, what we're propagandizing kids with. And, so there was this particular issue. And we also had, we have an article on this same issue too by Larry Sand, our guest here, and he wrote an article in the it looks like the Ohio Star that talks about this issue as well. So and just in case you didn't think that race is completely through and through an issue, in Minnesota, it's so crazy about this stuff that they're literally saying that, hey, look, the union is going to treat teachers differently based on their race. They're literally telling people, hey, look, if we have to fire you, we're going to do it on a racial quota system where we're going to say, hey, look, if you're white, we're going to get rid of you first. So, which is just kind of insane. Not even a quota, I guess. It's literally just targeting you. If you're white, you're the first out. So anyways, it's just absolutely nuts. And this was also something that was happening in 2022. So I'll throw it to you guys. You guys want to open up on this critical race theory issue?
Larry, you can go. Larry, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you, Leon. Yeah, I mean, I have no words. I mean, as you rightfully pointed out, in Minneapolis now, the contract between the school district and the Minnesota Federation of Teachers, the teachers union, says that. Let's back up a second. Traditionally, the newest in are the first out, last in, first out. That's a seniority system. But now it's by color. So if you are if you're black, you're going to keep your job over a white person. It doesn't matter. You might be a better teacher, in which case it's a good choice. But what if the white teacher is better? It's a terrible choice. And it's so ironic because, I mean, I lived through the 60s and I remember Martin Luther King and I remember George Wallace, and it just seems that we've done a 180 now. And now, instead of saying, instead of judging a man by the content of his character instead of the color of his skin, we're judging the man by the color of his skin and not even looking at the content of his character. I mean, I don't know. I have no words. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah,
Really is. I'm not often speechless. I'm sorry.
But this is just a problem on a larger scale here. This is just a problem that the United States, we here in the United States, we fought a whole civil rights movement. Well, it was before I immigrated. My apologies.
Well,
yeah, we fought a whole civil rights movement to get away from judgment based upon skin color. That was what it was all about. It was George Wallace, just like you say, versus Martin Luther King. And King said in his famous speech on the Washington Mall, where he said that he hoped and prayed that his four little children, will grow up in a nation where they are judged not by the color of the skin, but by the content of their character. But now, content of the character is not even a part of the mix nowadays. Now we have diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all it is judging by ethnicity and skin color. This is the poison that they're teaching to our children, and they calling this some sort of good, that somehow or the other we're going to get to this racial utopia where everybody will be so nice and wonderful and everything is going to be, everybody will accept this nonsense. But this is poison. They're not teaching our kids reading, writing, and arithmetic because every report that we see to date, our public schools are failing and failing miserably. Our children are suffering, but yet they're down this path of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And our kids are not learning. We have created a nation of dumbasses is what we are doing. I don't know what the outcome would be, but that is what is happening right now in our so-called public education.
Yeah, I agree. Dumbasses and controlled by, those in power, which are even more dangerous because it's clearly a political thing. I mean, when you read that, a little white 5-year-old kindergartner is taught that he's an oppressor and he's oppressing his little 5-year-old black friend. I mean, this is disgusting. I mean, it's just god awful, and parents need to rise up and just say, no, you can't do that. And some are. I mean, the movement is happening, but it's slow. People are catching on, but it's slow, and it needs to go faster.
Yeah, and this is my problem. That the movement is. You're right. I mean, we saw what is going on in we are seeing, I should say, what is going on in Loudoun County, Virginia, where that movement is beginning to bear some fruit. I think the governor of Virginia was elected because of these issues that are arising and because of parents' outrage at some of the things that were going on in the schools. The problem I have is that it's not happening fast enough. Too many kids are being lost because of this poison that is ongoing in the schools, and no one is teaching our children reading, writing, arithmetic, and critical thinking. None of that is going on. Well, too much of the wrong things are going on in the schools, and too little of the right things are going on in the schools, and our kids are suffering as a result.
Yeah, Leon brought up Virginia, and Glenn Youngkin essentially won because he was a parent. He was the parent candidate. Terry McAuliffe said something like, I don't remember the exact quote, but he sort of disrespected parents in a way.
He did, yes.
And it was a very clumsy statement, and that cost him big time. And Youngkin rightfully jumped on that and eventually won the election as governor.
Yeah, it was something
he said, McAuliffe said that parents have no right to be interfering with the curriculum of the schools. Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Well, that was a stupid thing he said. He paid the price,
Well, he did. But you could see the arrogance of these people. Okay, taxpayers are paying their salary. Okay, And these are our kids we are talking about, the same taxpayers who are paying these people's salary. And yet he's trying to tell us that we as parents, well, I mean, this is in Virginia, I don't live there, don't have a right to know what curriculum our kids are facing in the schools that we are paying for. This is unbelievable.
You know, arrogance is a great word. Arrogance is a great word, and there was a movie recently called "Whose Children Are They?" which gets into this issue, and it's sort of like, you know, the schools think these kids are their children, and which is a very dangerous mindset.
Yes.
There's even a famous quote from a teacher, you know, "I'm your mom now," like when you're not at home, I'm your mother, and that should scare the you know what out of every parent in the country.
Yes.
That attitude is frightening.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is you know, one of the things we have to wonder about as well. Is this just an attempt to propagandize our kids to make them part of some sort of political spearhead? You know, one of the things we had in California recently, just a couple of years ago, we had a Proposition 16 where we literally had, we have in our Constitution in California, the essentially the dream of Martin Luther King, that government will not, you know, government will essentially not use race or other superficial characteristics in judging us. So essentially we have to be judged on the content of our character or qualifications for something. And this Proposition 16 literally was trying to pull that out so that they could do that, right? And this was something put up by the Democrats, and it was narrowly defeated. This was something that was not, you know, we're talking about, you know, by a few percent or something. So, you know, kind of scary stuff. And this is exactly what this critical race theory stuff is trying to get us to do, is to get kids to, hey, let's divide ourselves, especially in these divisive times. It makes no sense.
But this is the problem. I'm sorry, Larry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Larry.
Well, no, I was just going to say that this is, I mean, maybe a discussion from another time, but this is all part of what's called cultural Marxism. And there's a deep, dark agenda, and it's been going on for over 100 years. You know, it's basically a left-wing radical agenda, and it's working, and people are pushing back now. But you know, when you look at what's happened in Minnesota, there's a great example of it, and it's clearly a culturally Marxist started and run program, and it's we the people have to stand up and just, you know, stand up and say no more.
Yeah, and it's funny, if you don't think that this is working its way into the curriculum, this is what, James, maybe you could show the visual here. This is something that was kind of broken out about a year ago, where Fox mentioned it, and essentially you would think that the most objective topic is mathematics. Okay, well, apparently in California they were trying to work this dismantling racism in mathematics instruction. They were trying to work that into the curriculum. And I mean, it just is astounding, you know, and you can go find this. It's called equitablemmath.org. And they talk about trying to work this into the California curriculum. And it is just nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was like, you know, insisting on a right answer is racist, don't you know?
Yeah, imagine that.
I mean, I used to teach math, and, you know, 2 and 2 is 4. And if you don't think so, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Now, if you insist that 2 and 2 is 4, you're a racist. We've lost our collective minds.
To say the least. You know, Larry, like you, I have taught math, and I've taught math to people from, I don't want to say every country in the world, but from people from many countries throughout the world. And I've said on this program before, and I'll say it again, I have never had a student say to me, Mr. Brathwaite, when we are home, we do it a little bit different. Math is a universal language in every culture, in every ethnic background. Math is universal in every country. Calculus is the same whether you're in Trinidad, where I came from, or in the United States, where I now live. Math is the same. It's the very same thing. But yet we have these people who are now telling us it is not character, it is not conduct, it's not competence. Those things are not important. It's just your skin color. And if you are black, you cannot learn mathematics because you're an oppressed victim. So I always say to people, let me tell you something. I was 14 years old when I started to learn calculus, and I did not dare go home and tell my father, Dad, I cannot learn calculus because I'm black. I should have tried that. My ass probably would have been still been burning from what he would have done to me. Okay? But no, my father was a good father. Don't misunderstand me, but he was a very well knowledgeable man enough to know that I needed to be educated. And I was. I became an engineer. But this is the nonsense that they had poisoned our kids with. That, because you're oppressed, because you're a victim, you cannot learn. Look at what Jaime Escalante did in East Los with those kids. Look at what he did and accomplished. It was amazing and beautiful. But yet we have these idiots, these diversity, equity, and inclusion idiots trying to tell us that should not be happening. God help us.
That's a great stories, Leon. And you brought up Jaime Escalante. I mean, for those of you who don't know, I think he was Bolivian. And he didn't go for the small class stuff. He had huge classes, and his kids just did so well on the standardized test. They did so well that they thought the kids were cheating.
Right.
That he was cheating. And so they took the test again under very strict circumstances. They got the same scores. He wasn't cheating. He was just a fabulous teacher. And he was just drummed out of the district because he didn't believe the class size nonsense. Oh, we need 16 kids in a class. They won't learn. And he knew that was garbage. Also, just one ad about this pathway to equitable math instruction. There was a lot of pushback, and the math standards have not been settled yet. I mean, we're undergoing a war here in California, over the proper standards, and they will be decided at some point this year, supposedly, allegedly, maybe.
Yeah. Well, this is the crazy thing, though. There's real consequences to this stuff. I mean, and when we brought in to the topic of Jaime Escalante, and by the way, if for our viewers, check out a movie. It's called Stand and Deliver. If you want to hear a little more about that, wonderful movie. But and that was about a focus of him trying to teach calculus to kids that the school district said could not learn calculus because they said they were not capable. And by breaking the chains, he actually showed they were capable, and you guys just are failing in your job to reach these kids. But aside from the actual consequences of this stuff, is that this focus on race is causing us to lose the race on getting these kids to success. I mean, maybe James, I could pull up the visual here. Larry has a article here on the front page mag where he talks about this focus on some of the CRT and the recent terrible testing scores that we've had throughout the country on some of this stuff, and certainly in California as well. But another thing that ties into all this as well with these metrics is in California, we're literally pulling away the SAT scores as a standardization because the kids are doing poorly enough that they're not liking the way the results are, that they're just saying, okay, well, we're going to measure at change the finish line because we don't like how the metrics are showing how the kids are performing. And, so this is something that happened a few years ago. But, just on this race issue, and since Leon was talking about it as well, if it were true that, these tests were so biased and so terrible, why is it that the foreign students come in to the UC system and they beat us in our own SATs on math? It's just insane, and yet we're gonna focus on race and say that that's the problem. Absolutely nuts.
And it's only certain races because I think, as we all know, the Asians are, when you're talking about ethnic groups, are the highest performers, and they are people of color, as far as I know. And usually, when you start getting in with race-based admissions to colleges or whatever, or wherever, it's other people of color, Asians, who suffer the most. Yes. And that's why they're fighting back now against this, because they realize they're getting screwed. Not to put too fine a point on it, they're getting screwed.
Well, there's a Supreme Court case involving Harvard University and the University of North Carolina that is presently before the courts. And hopefully they will dismantle some of this damn nonsense. I hope. I don't know if it will, how far reaching it will be, but I hope it will dismantle some of this damn nonsense. It is really, I mean, I am serious when I say this. They are doing nothing but trying to create a nation of dumbasses controlled by the left wing of our country. That's what they're trying to do.
Yep. I've nothing to add. That's about it. And just in the two cases, which Leon's right, University of North Carolina and Harvard will be heard sometime this year, so it could be in June, not until June till we hear. But this could go a long way towards changing the way things are done now in colleges.
Yes, God, I hope so. I really do.
Well, the sad thing is too, it takes our focus away from what the real problems are in education, and instead divides us, and then sets us on a problem that is not there, and focuses all our energy to sit there and fight about race, when instead we should be looking to competition to help us figure out what the real problems are in education, not just sit there and tear ourselves apart about race. So it's just absolutely awful. Well, on another note, it's not just race that the schools are sort of misdirecting our kids on. They also seem to have this weird fixation on focusing us on gender, I guess, as well in the schools, which is kind of crazy. I mean, when I was a kid, sex ed was the big thing, and the idea that they were going to tell us a little bit about sex when we got to our 8th grade or high school or whatever, that was always something to giggle about. Well, now, James, maybe you could show the visual here. Now we literally have the schools, not worried about sending permission slips home for us to learn about sex ed. They're literally trying to talk to our kids about what gender they are and not tell us that they're talking about our kids. They said, don't tell your parents what we told you here, which is just absolutely nuts. And, we see here that there's an article here from the Daily Wire, talks about a lawsuit in California where, the school is literally talking to these kids about their genders without telling them or telling the parents. They're opening up these discussions for little kids, kids that are just barely hitting puberty or prepubescent, talking to them about gender. It's just absolutely nuts. In some cases, this is in Ohio. They're literally talking to the kids about sex at 6 years old. I mean, this is nuts. I remember seeing a South Park episode where they were trying to make fun of these ideas, and they show the teacher trying to teach kindergartners about sex ed, and that was supposed to be parody, and we're sitting there just blazing away to parody. It's just absolutely crazy.
It is crazy, and also you probably know, but maybe some of your viewers here don't know, that California is now a sanctuary state for children who want to transition, and you can have a minor come to this state behind their parents' back and get certain things done to your body that which will change your sex. Let's leave it at that. And I mean, I think this is criminal. I can't imagine this law will not be challenged, but it's on the books. It went into effect, I believe, on January 1st, 2023.
It did.
Just now.
It did, yes.
And I mean, this is a disaster. I mean, you talk about going behind parents' backs and doing things that they wouldn't approve of. My God, I mean, this kid in Alabama, 15-year-old thinks he's a girl. Boy, 15-boy thinks he's a girl, and he's going to come to California and get his privates cut off. And it also speaks volumes, I think, about the medical profession, what's happened. And it's not only schools that have gone crazy, it's the medical profession and other institutions.
Yes.
It's a long march through the institutions. It's working so far, sadly.
Sadly indeed. It is true. We must acknowledge that gender dysphoria is a real phenomenon. Okay, there's people who suffer with it. There's no doubt about that, and nobody's arguing that point. What I do argue, and what I will continue to say, the treatment for gender dysphoria that is now being prescribed is nothing but junk science. Period. Because what we are talking about at the end of the day, is, I mean, when the kids are old enough, I guess, I hope old enough, is that we are trying to destroy healthy body parts in the name of some delusion that someone have in their mind. Where in medical science do we do that? Where? That where we remove healthy body parts to treat a psychological disorder. So we're trying to approach this thing physiologically when we have a mental disorder of some kind. This is seriously problematic. There was a case recently of this girl. She appeared on Fox News. Well, she was born a girl. She transitioned. Oh no, it might have been the other way around. Anyway, whichever way it was. Yeah, I think she transitioned to a boy, and now she's trying to go back, but she's having all kinds of problems. And this is the problem when we make these life-changing decisions on these little kids, some as long as 7, 8, 9-year-olds, and that kind of stuff. When we make these sort of life-changing decisions, life-altering decisions, we don't know what the long-term effects is going to have on these people. We don't. Mm-hmm. And we are destroying these people in the process of affirming the agenda. What are we affirming? Their delusions? Get real.
Yeah. We'll talk about.
I have nothing to add, Leon. You said it very well.
Well, talk about mission creep too. I mean, the schools are supposed to be teaching, reading, writing, arithmetic, and the idea that suddenly now they're medical experts and psychological experts who can tell your kid, I didn't realize they had medical degrees here at these schools and psychiatric degrees to sit here and advise your kids on outside of a parent's purview of issues like this. This is absolutely nuts on so many levels. I just
yeah, absolutely nuts. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, we are getting close to the end of the show, and we did talk with. We was going to talk a little bit about school choice, but we talked with Larry on a recent show about school choice, so I'll leave that one for viewers to go there to check that out a little bit. But let's get to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and this time we are going to Chicago, where Mayor Lightfoot, her campaign apparently reached out to kids. And we've been talking about indoctrination and everything else. So apparently they were offering the teachers there to tell their kids that they'd get extra credit if they wanted to come help out on the Lori Lightfoot campaign. So essentially spend time assisting. Now, since then, Lori Lightfoot's come out and said, hey, that was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. But the point is that they're that cozy with the teachers union and the teachers that they feel comfortable that they can just reach out and say, hey, why don't you guys, send us some of your people so that they can help out, get your mayor reelected. It's just absolutely nuts. I mean, do you guys want to jump in on this one?
She got caught is her problem. Not that she did it. She got caught. Oops.
Yeah. Yeah, you never notice that whenever these politicians get caught with their nonsense, with their illegal conduct, you never notice they always blame some innocent staffer. Oh, it was the staffer. I had nothing to do with that, Right. I had absolutely nothing to do with that. This good person, I would never do anything like that. It was that little stupid staffer that did it. But you know what? Yeah. The staffer didn't get fired for this. Okay? And no staffer ever get fired. They always blame the staffer. Oh, this low-level staff person who didn't know our procedures and protocols. That is how this letter went out. When we damn well know Lori Lightfoot and the teachers union sat around and talked about this before they did it. God, these people are really something. They're so corrupt, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's just awful, but this is sort of the state of our current public schools. So hopefully we can, get people out there spreading the word like Larry, that this is something we really need to change it. And by the way, as we end the show, I wanted to bring up Larry's website real quick, his California Teachers Empowerment Network. Larry, did you have any final thoughts you wanted to mention about that, or direct anybody to go and look at any of this stuff?
I just want to tell teachers for teachers, just wake up, see what your district is doing, and start screaming. You have the power to change things. And you need to get out of your union if you're in your union, because the union is a part of, is a major cause of all the blight we're seeing today. And for parents, wake up, talk to your kids every day when they come home from school, every day, and find out what they're learning. And that's if they must go to a public school, you must talk to them daily.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. That sounds like great words of wisdom from Larry. You can also check out, he has a Twitter page where he posts a lot of these articles, and I think articles that he gets published in other publications as well. And if you want to hear, we had an interview with Larry on another show, and you can go out and find out more about him from that show as well. But thanks so much again, Larry, for joining us today. And thanks to our audience for joining us as well. And until the next one, stay free.
Larry, thank you. Yes, indeed, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Leon. It's been a pleasure being with both of you.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.